It's Mindset Monday, and welcome to the Bad Influence Podcast with yours truly, Bjordan Banderas. Listen to what I must tell you today. The moment the pressure gets heaviest is the exact moment most people make the decision that has nothing to do with the pressure and everything to do with who they believe they are. And right now, you are in that moment. Oh, yes, you are. Maybe you've been in it for a while, right? It happens. The thing you're building, the pursuit you're committed to, it's gotten heavier than you expected. Again, it happens. The timeline is longer than you planned. The resistance is more real than the version of this you imagined when you started. And somewhere in the middle of all that weight, a thought arrived. Oh, yes, it did. And that thought is, maybe you're not cut out for this. Maybe the pressure is a signal. Maybe the difficulty itself is the answer to a question you've been afraid to ask out loud. And you haven't said that to anyone, have you? But here's the problem. You've said it to yourself. In the quiet, in the hard moments, in the space between the version of this you believed in and the version of this that is actually in front of you right now. And that thought, that specific, quiet, devastatingly well-timed thought is what this episode is about. Because here's what that thought is doing. It is using the pressure as evidence. Oh, yes, it is. It is taking the weight of the pursuit, the completely normal, completely expected, completely necessary weight of doing something that actually matters, and converting it into a verdict about your capability. And that conversion is a lie. A sophisticated, well-disguised, emotionally convincing lie, but a lie nonetheless. So be honest right now. When did the pressure start feeling like a sign that you were in the wrong place, rather than a sign that you were finally in the right one? Because those are not the same thing. Those are not even close to the same thing. No, they're not. And the difference between those two interpretations, the difference between pressure as proof you don't belong and pressure as proof you're finally in the arena, that difference is the entire game. That difference is what separates the people who break through from the people who break down right at the threshold of the thing they were actually built for. And right now, you are standing at that threshold. Not coincidentally, not by accident. The pressure is highest right here because what's on the other side of it, it's real. Small things don't create this kind of weight. Oh no, they don't. Ordinary pursuits don't produce this kind of resistance. The pressure you're feeling is proportional to the size of what you're building. Oh yeah. And today, we make sure you understand exactly what that means before you make a decision you cannot take back. That's right, we're going through that. The thought that pressure means you don't belong, that didn't arrive fully formed. No, it never does. It was built piece by piece, experience by experience, long before this pursuit ever started. And understanding where it was built is the only way to stop it from running the show. So let's go back. Oh yes, let's go back. Back to the first time something got hard and the message you received, directly or indirectly, was that difficulty means stop. Maybe it came from an environment where a struggle was treated as shame. It happens. Where having a hard time was something to hide rather than something to move through. Again, it happens. Where the people around you perform ease, even when nothing was easy. Because showing the strain meant showing weakness. and you absorb that performance as the standard. If it's hard, something is wrong. If you're struggling, you're failing. If the pressure is real, you probably shouldn't be here. That's not truth. That's a cultural inheritance that was handed to you before you were old enough to question it. Oh, yes, it was. Or maybe, just maybe, it came more directly than that. Maybe you watched someone you love quit something important under pressure. It happens, right? And the story that got written around that moment, the story the family told, the conclusion the environment drew, was that the quitting was reasonable. That the pressure was a valid reason to stop. That protecting yourself from the weight was smarter than learning to carry it. And you filed that story away. Oh, yes, you did. We all do at one point. And here's the thing. That doesn't happen consciously, but it happens completely. So that when your own pressure arrived, when your own pursuit started asking for more of you than felt comfortable, the filing cabinet opened automatically. And the story played. This is too much. Smart people know when to stop. Protecting yourself is wisdom. Well, guess what? That's not wisdom. That's a learned response wearing wisdom's clothing. Or maybe it came from early experiences of genuine failure. Moments where you push hard towards something and it didn't work. It happens, right? We have all gone through that. And the pain of that, the specific pain of full effort meeting full disappointment, got lodged in your nervous system as a warning. Don't go that far again. Don't invest that much again. Because the further you go, the harder the fall when it doesn't work. Oh, we all have gone through that. And so you develop a relationship with pressure that treats it as a precursor to pain rather than a precursor to progress. And every time the pressure rises, the nervous system fires that old warning. Pull back, protect yourself. This is how the last one ended. But here's what that warning gets wrong every single time. The last pursuit that ended in pain, that wasn't proof that pressure leads to failure. No, it wasn't. That was one data point in a much larger story that hasn't finished yet. And using one painful chapter as the permanent forecast for every chapter that follows, that is not pattern recognition. No, it is not. That is fear pretending to be experience. Think about the specific version of pressure you're feeling right now. The weight of it, the persistence of it, the way it follows you into the morning and sits with you through the day and shows up again at night when everything goes quiet. That pressure has a texture that's familiar to you because you felt versions of it before. Oh, yes, you have. Don't you lie to yourself. And every time you felt it, what did you do? Be honest. Be absolutely honest. Did you move through it? Or did you find a way to reduce it? Did you let it force you? Or did you manage it back down to a level that felt survivable? Because managing pressure down and moving through pressure are completely different responses with completely different outcomes. Oh, yeah. Managing it down keeps you functional. It keeps things bearable. But it also keeps the ceiling exactly where it is. And your ceiling right now, the one that's creating all this pressure, is directly proportional to the size of what you're pursuing. Which means the pressure is not a problem to be managed. It is a threshold to be crossed. And I want you to understand that. because your conditioning keeps telling you to manage it, to keep it tolerable, to keep it safe, keep it at the level where you can still feel like yourself. But the version of yourself the pursuit requires, that version doesn't live at the tolerable level. That version lives on the other side of the threshold. Oh, yes, it is. In the place you can only reach by going through the pressure, not around it. And somewhere inside you, underneath the conditioning, underneath the old stories, underneath every learned response that told you difficulty means stop, you already know that the pressure you're feeling right now is not the wall, it is the door. You know it's true. The pressure isn't just in your head. It never was. It's in your body. It's specifically, physically, undeniably in your body. And it has been sitting there longer than you've been willing to acknowledge. Feel your chest right now. Not the idea of your chest, your actual chest. Is there a tightness there? A compression that sits just below the surface of every breath you take. Not sharp, not dramatic, just present. A constant low-grade squeeze that makes every inhale feel like it's working against something. You know what I'm talking about. You know that feeling. Well, that's the pressure living in tissue. That's the weight of the pursuit, combined with the story that you might not be built for it, occupying physical space inside you. And it has been there every morning when you wake up, before you check your phone, before the first thought fully forms. You know what I'm talking about. That tightness is already there. Oh, yes, it is. Already present, already waiting. Like your body wakes up ahead of you and started carrying the weight before you even had a chance to decide how to face the day. Think about your jaw right now. Where is it? Loose and easy, or pressed together in that permanent low-grade clench that you've stopped noticing because noticing it requires admitting how much you're bracing? That clenched jaw is not stress from today. It is not. That is the accumulated physical signature of someone who has been under sustained pressure and has been responding to it by contracting rather than moving through. Holding the weight in the body instead of letting it move. It happens. Think about the moments in your day when the pursuit gets louder in your mind. When the gap between where you are and where you're trying to go becomes impossible to ignore. What happens in your stomach in those moments? That specific drop. That hollow sinking sensation right in the center of your gut. That is your nervous system interpreting the pressure as threat. Not as challenge, but as threat. And under threat, the body doesn't expand. It contracts. It pulls resources inward. It redirects energy away from creativity, away from clarity, away from the bold, decisive action the pursuit requires, and toward survival, toward getting through the moment without breaking. And you've been in that survival state more than you realize. And it's hard to realize, unfortunately, because this is more than why it's sustainable for you. Think about your sleep. The nights where the mind simply will not stop, where the pursuit runs on a loop, the progress, the gap, the timeline, the doubt, cycling through over and over and over while the body lies still and the hour disappears without rest actually arriving. That racing mind at midnight is not productivity. That is a nervous system so saturated with unprocessed pressure that it cannot downshift, even when downshifting is the only thing that will actually help. And you wake up from those nights already behind. Oh, we all do. Already running a deficit before the day has asked anything of you. And the pursuit And then the pursuit demands your best, your clearest thinking, your sharpest execution, your most courageous action, from a body and mind that are running on empty. And when the execution doesn't match the vision, when the output falls short and what you know you're capable of, the pressure narrative gets louder. Maybe you're not cut out for this. But that's not what that gap is showing you. That gap is showing you a person who is pursuing something real under sustained physical and emotional load, without the recovery, the release, the grounding that will let the body and mind actually perform. The problem is not your capability, because you're more than capable. The problem is that you've been trying to run at full capacity while carrying a weight that has never been put down. The pressure hasn't been moved through. It has been accumulated, layer by layer, day by day, until the body is so full of it that there's barely room left for the belief that started all of this. And that belief, the original one, the one that said this is worth it and you are built for it, is still in there, buried under the weight, waiting to breathe. Let's hold the mirror up, all the way up to the ceiling. Because this is the part where we stop describing the pressure and start looking at what misreading it is actually costing you. Because it is costing you something. Not eventually, right now, today. In real and specific ways that are already showing up in your life. So let's start with the decision you've been circling. You know, the one. Yeah, that one. The next move, the one the pursuit is asking you to make, that you've been delaying because the pressure made it feel like maybe you should wait. Maybe get more stable first. Maybe let things settle before pushing further. And every day you delay that particular decision, the window doesn't stay open the same size. No, it doesn't. Momentum is a living thing. It grows when you feed it and it shrinks when you starve it. And every day you let the pressure talk you into waiting, you are starving the momentum that took enormous effort to build. And rebuilding momentum from a standing stop costs more than maintaining it through the pressure will have. That is the real cost. Measurable, specific, already happening. It is true. Now look at the version of yourself you were when this pursuit started. The certainty you had, the fire, the clarity about why this mattered and what you were willing to do to make it real. Compare that version to the version of you right now. Not in capability, in belief. Is the belief the same size it was when you started? Good question. Or has the pressure, misread as verdict, been slowly eroding it? Be honest. You have to be honest. Because belief doesn't disappear in one dramatic moment. No, it doesn't. It erodes in small daily surrenders. Every time you entertain the thought that maybe you're not cut out for this, the belief loses a fraction of its volume. Every time you treat the pressure as evidence against yourself, the foundation loses a fraction of its solidity. And it has been happening quietly for a very long time. So quietly that you might not have noticed how much smaller the belief is now than it was when at the beginning. And the pursuit being run on diminished belief is a pursuit that is being quietly sabotaged from the inside. Not by obstacles, by the interpretation of them. Now, look at the people who are counting on what you're building. Not in a guilt-based way, in a real way. The people whose lives will be better because you saw this through. There are people out there that can benefit from this. The person you're becoming through this process, and what that version of you will be able to give to the people around you. Every day you consider walking back from the pressure, that person waits one more day to exist. The contribution waits, the impact waits, the version of your life that finally feels worth it waits. And it waits not because the path is closed, because the pressure convinces you to stand still on an open road. Now, look at what you're teaching yourself. Because every decision you make under pressure becomes a data point your nervous system uses to calibrate future responses. Every time you treat pressure as a stop sign, your nervous system learns that pressure means stop. And the next time it arrives, and it will arrive, because everything worth building generates pressure, the response fires faster. The retreat happens sooner. The threshold for what feels like too much gets lower. And gradually, without a single dramatic breakdown, you become a person who operates only within the zone of comfortable effort. Only within the range where the pressure stays manageable. And within that range, the life you want is not available. It has never been available there, because the life you want requires the version of you that was forged by pressure, not protected from it. That is so true. Think about the specific thing you're working toward. The real version of it. The full version. Not the scaled back version you've been quietly substituting when the original feels too heavy to carry. No, I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the original. Does it still feel like yours? Yeah, like it's actually yours? Or has the pressure been slowly transferring ownership, moving it from the category of mine to the category of maybe someday to the category of probably not for someone like me? That transfer is the most expensive thing the misread pressure has been doing. Because once the vision stops feeling like yours, once it moves into the someday category, the energy required to pursue it changes completely. You stop moving toward it with the urgency of someone who believes it belongs to them. You start moving toward it, if you move at all, with the tentative half-assed commitment of someone who is no longer sure they deserve to arrive. And half-assed commitment produces half-assed results that confirm the doubt that created the half-assed commitment. That is the cycle the misread pressure has been building. And you are somewhere inside that cycle right now. Not at the end of it, not past the point of return, but inside it, feeling its pull, standing at exactly the moment where the cycle either gets broken or gets deeper. Now, look at the version of you that quit. Not as a possibility you're considering, no, but as a mirror. The version of you that let the pressure become the verdict. Yeah, that one. The one that walked back from the pursuit and found something safer and told the story that it was the right decision. Where does that version of you end up in 5 years? Just 5 years, right? In 2031. Not in terms of what they have, in terms of how they feel when the quiet comes. When the noise of the safer life dies down and the original vision surfaces. The way it always surfaces. And ask the question that never fully goes away. What if you had stayed? What if the pressure was exactly what it needed to be? And you were exactly who you needed to be to move through it? What if the only thing that stood between you and everything you built this for was the decision you made in the moment it got heaviest? That question is waiting for you on the other side of quitting. And it never stops asking. Unfortunately, never does. Now, we reframe everything, not to make you feel better, to make you see clearly. Because clarity, real clarity, is more powerful than motivation ever could be. Motivation fades when the pressure rises. Clarity holds. And here's the clearest thing that can be said about everything we've covered today. The pressure you're feeling is not a question about your capability. No. It is confirmation of your direction. Repeat that to yourself time and time again. The pressure is confirmation of your direction. Because pressure is not randomly distributed. No, it is not. It doesn't show up in the places where nothing is at stake. It doesn't accumulate around pursuits that don't matter. It never does. It never does. Because pressure is the natural byproduct of pursuing something real. Something that requires a version of you that hasn't fully existed yet. And the gap between who you are right now and who the pursuit requires you to become, that gap generates friction. That friction feels like pressure. Oh, yes, it does. Believe me. And that pressure is not evidence that you're in the wrong place. It never is. It is the precise sensation of growth happening in real time. Think about that. The discomfort you've been interpreting as a warning sign. That is actually the feeling of becoming, not the feeling of failing, the feeling of expanding into something larger than what you currently are. And expansion, expansion is always uncomfortable. Always. Because you are moving into territory that the current version of you has never occupied. Oh, tell me if I'm wrong, right? And the nervous system, doing exactly what it was built to do, registers unfamiliar territory as danger. But unfamiliar territory and dangerous are not the same thing. And learning to tell the difference in the body, in real time, under pressure, that is one of the most important skills a person pursuing something significant can develop. So here's how you start developing it. The next time the pressure rises, and it will rise again, probably today, you stop before you interpret it. You feel your feet on the ground. You take one breath that actually reaches the bottom of your lungs. And instead of asking, is this a sign that I don't belong here? You ask a different question. What is this pressure asking me to become? That single shift from pressure as verdict to pressure as instruction changes the entire relationship between you and the difficulty. The pressure stops being the enemy. Oh, yes, it does. And that's what you need to learn. Because then it becomes the curriculum. And you are not a student who is failing the curriculum. You are a student who is exactly where the curriculum needs you to be. In the hard part, where the real learning happens. Now, let's talk about being caught up for something actually means. Because the phrase itself is part of the problem. Oh, yes, it is. And let me tell you why. Because it implies that people either have the innate capacity for a pursuit or they don't. That some people are pre-built for certain levels of difficulty and others simply aren't. And that framework is not just wrong. It is the exact framework that makes people quit right before the breakthrough. And here's the truth. Nobody is pre-built for the level the pursuit requires. Nobody arrives at the hard part already equipped with everything the hard part demands. Nobody. You get equipped in the process. You become cut out for it by going through it. The capacity gets built by the doing, not before it, which means the fact that the pressure feels bigger than you right now is not evidence that you're not cut out for this. It is evidence that the pursuit is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, expanding you beyond what you currently are. And you are in the middle of that expansion, not at the end of it. Not past the point where it's possible. In the middle, which is always the hardest place to be. And always the most important place to stay. Oh yeah, so stay. So here's your standard from this moment forward. Not a goal, not a coping strategy, a standard. You do not use pressure as evidence against yourself. Ever. Not when it's heavy. Not when it's sustained. Not when it has been sitting in your chest for longer than you expected. You feel it. Fully. Honestly. Without pretending it isn't real. And then you ask why it's building in you rather than what it's saying about you. Because those are two completely different questions with two completely different futures attached to them. Oh yeah? One question leads you out of the pursuit. You know which question I'm talking about. The other leads you deeper into the person the pursuit is forging. And you are the kind of person who goes deeper. Not because it's comfortable, because it will never be comfortable. Because you already decided this matters enough to stay in the fire. You decided that before you ever felt this pressure, back when the vision was clear and the belief was full and the pursuit felt like yours completely, that decision is still valid. The pressure didn't cancel it. The pressure is testing whether you meant it. And guess what? You meant it. You know you meant it. Yes, you do. So when the pressure rises from here, and you feel the old story beginning to form, the one that says maybe you're not built for this, you stop it at the root. You name it for what it is. An old learned response, a conditioned interpretation, a story that was never about you, your actual capability. And you replace it, not with false positivity, not with forced enthusiasm, but with the simple, grounded, evidence-based truth. The pressure is here because what you're building is real. The difficulty is here because growth is happening. The discomfort is here because you are becoming someone you have never been before. And you are exactly where you need to be. Oh, yes, you are. Don't you forget that. Now, let's talk about what happens when you start operating from that standard consistently. Oh, yes. The chest that has been tight starts to open. Not because the pressure disappears, but because you stop fighting it. You stop you stop spending energy on resistance and start spending it on movement. And movement, even small, even imperfect, even made under full pressure, builds the evidence your nervous system has been waiting for. Evidence that pressure does not mean stop. Evidence that the hard part is survivable. Evidence that you are the kind of person who keeps going, even when everything in the environment is suggesting otherwise. And that evidence compounds. Every day you stay in the pursuit under pressure, the foundation of belief gets one layer stronger. Every day you choose movement over retreat, the nervous system updates its prediction. Every day you ask what this is building rather than what this is saying, the pressure loses a fraction of its power to mislead you. And gradually, not overnight, but genuinely and permanently, The relationship between you and the difficulty transforms. Pressure stops being the thing that makes you question yourself. It becomes the thing that reminds you who you are. And you need to remind yourself of who you are every time. And if this episode hit something real, if something in here interrupted the story that the pressure has been telling you about yourself and replaced it with a truth that feels more solid, hit that subscribe button, because every single Monday we come back to this exact work. The work of building a mind that doesn't break under pressure, that doesn't confuse difficulty with inadequacy, that doesn't quit in the exact moment the pursuit is asking for everything. This is not a podcast for people who want the pursuit to be easy. This is a podcast for people who are willing to stay in it when it gets hard, and who want to understand themselves well enough to know the difference between a real wall and a necessary threshold. The pressure you are under right now is a threshold, not a wall, and I want you to understand that. And the version of you on the other side of it, the one who stayed, who moved through, who let the difficulty build rather than break them, that version is closer than the doubt has been telling you. Not distant, not conditional, not dependent on the pressure getting lighter first. One decision away, the decision to stay, the decision to reframe. The decision to take the weight of the pursuit and carry it not as evidence of your limitation, but as proof of your direction. You are not cracking under the pressure. You are not. You are being shaped by it. The way every person who ever built something worth having was shaped by it. Oh yes. And that is in the discomfort, in the doubt, in the moments when quitting felt more reasonable than continuing. They continued. And the continuing changed them. Yes, it did. It changed them into someone the pressure could no longer mislead. Into someone who recognized difficulty as the texture of real pursuit rather than the signal of wrong direction. That is who you are becoming. Right now, in this pressure, in this moment. You were always cut out for this. You are not just a part of the process where you get to prove it to yourself. No, you are not. And remember, the choice is yours.